Real quick before we start, the new holiday merch is now live at Goblin420.com. Head over to the merch site and check out all the new stuff like framed posters, even a cooking apron, a bunch of brand new hoodies, crew necks, and shirts, and tons of other new items. Every single purchase gets a personal audio thank you message from me, and I appreciate all the support on the merch and you guys for making this possible. Hope you guys enjoy this video. Let's dive right into it. What is up, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls? It's your boy Goblin, and today we're coming in with another banger of a video. Hope you guys enjoy this one. Drop a like if you do. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. And without further ado, let's dive right into this one. So this took place back in fall of 2019, which for some of you guys who have been around this channel a while, you might remember that this was a pretty interesting period of my life. At this point, I had just recently got kicked out of my mom's house and moved down to a really shitty house, which created my Trap House Tales video series. If you guys haven't seen that yet, it's a banger. You should probably go watch it. But at this point, my roommates had just moved out, and I had no car up until a few days prior to this happening. I had just recently bought a really old Volvo 240. The exact year it was is slipping my mind, but it's fucking old. Like, this car is way older than me. This car is probably like a decade old by the time I was born, right? So it had some age, you could say. But typically, these cars are pretty reliable, and I didn't have a huge budget to work with at this time. I was willing to spend tops $1,500 on a car. So this is what I ended up with. It had like 170,000 miles or something around that, but it was fairly reliable, and it was comfy, so I was happy. But there was one little problem with this car. It had an issue that I was told originally was a spark plug issue. I was told that the spark plugs were old. However, that wasn't actually accurate because the spark plugs had just recently been replaced, yet the engine still stuttered. I'm not talking like it stuttered when you started it up. I'm talking you'd be going through traffic and the car would just stop running. It wasn't super frequent, and I'd say a good 80 to 90% of the time, I could drive wherever I wanted with no issue. But there was quite a few incidents of this happening, and it's part of why I stopped driving the car, because there was so much work already put into it by the previous owner, they couldn't fix it. I didn't want to dump a bunch of money into a car I paid $1,500 for. I just drove this thing until the wheels fell off, because I needed something to get me from point A to point B. So once I got my hands on this car, I decided that I was going to drive up north and get some of the stuff that I left at my mom's house. I still had a bit of furniture and some clothes and other personal stuff that I didn't get a chance to bring down to my new place because the car I rode down in didn't have enough room. For those guys who have been on this channel a while, you might remember that at this point, I was about to lose my license. Just a couple months prior, not even 2 months, it was like a month and a half prior, I had gotten pulled over and I got a DUI, right? So I was on the verge of losing my license at this point, but it hadn't quite taken effect yet because there's a window after you get that DUI, at least in Illinois, I don't know about other states, where you have about a month after that, month and a half, before you actually get the letter from Secretary of State saying, yeah, fuck off, you can never drive again. So I still had my license intact at this point for maybe a few more days. This was like a week and a half before Thanksgiving, maybe a week before that this took place. So I'm chilling, and I'm getting ready to leave out of my house. I'm going up north, and, I hit up my boy Kyle and ask him what he's on, and tell him that I'm coming up to grab some stuff, and we should hang out. So I brought the little bit of weed that I had with me, which wasn't a ton, because at this point, I was still pretty piss broke, and I didn't really have any good weed connection down here. I also didn't have my med card yet, and weed wasn't even legal here yet. So really, all I had to rely on was whoever had weed. I would buy weed off anyone at this point. I was desperate. But I had a little bit of bud, maybe an eighth or so. So I grabbed that and I brought it with me. And I also brought this tiny bit of coke that I'd been saving. Now, it probably wasn't even a gram. And saving is a very loose term because I can't save cocaine for shit. It was more so I found this bag that I'd lost track of a few weeks prior. And I decided to bring it with me to have some fun. So I'm packing my little bag up and I throw it in the car and I've got my blow and I've got my weed and I've got everything I need to hit the road. Now, this is supposed to be just an average drive. It's not like a super long road trip. I'm driving like 4 hours or so. It's no biggie. This car I had never really taken on this long of a trip before, but I figured it could make it. The girl who owned it before me told me that she drove it all the way to Illinois from California. So I was like, well, If that thing could do that, I mean, it's probably fine. Like, whatever. If it breaks down, we'll figure it out. But I wasn't expecting to have any problems with it because the few times I drove it around town, that stutter thing wasn't really a big issue. The car hadn't died on me yet at this point from that stutter. This was the first time that this happened. So I hop in the car, I've got all my shit packed up, and I hit the road. Now, I pre-rolled a few blunts, so I spark one up. And I'm riding on the highway, and it's early in the afternoon, so it's bright as day out. I'm not worried about shit. Some of you guys who are OGs might remember that I had a headlight problem in this car, so I always tried to avoid driving at night because the headlight was dead, and I didn't want to spend the money to fix that shit. I was like, you know what? We'll just drive it daytime. Fuck this shit. I'm broke, dude. I'm not fixing this, you know? So I get about an hour into the trip, and this is, like I said earlier, one of my first times driving this car on a fairly long trip. And as I got up to highway speeds and even higher, because I like to go like 85 or 90 on the highway, you know, I got places to be, things to see, the stutter problem starts to get really bad. You feel the car, it almost feels like the car's like choking on itself, dude. Like it just gives out. There's no power for a split second, and then it goes back to normal. But as I started going faster, it got really bad. So I was like, okay, I'll just slow down and ride in the right lane, and I'll probably be fine. So I slow down a little bit and I get over to the right lane. And at this point, I'm in bumfuck nowhere, mind you. Driving in Illinois sucks for numerous reasons. But the top two reasons that it sucks the most are one, because there's absolutely fuck all to look at. There's some places where it's fun to drive, like you see nice trees or the roads are bendy or there's good scenery. Illinois, the roads are straight as fuck, they're flat as fuck, and all you see around you is corn and McDonald's billboards. That's it. Driving in Illinois sucks, but also, I don't think I've ever in my life been to a state where I've seen more cops on the highway. It is every other exit. There is a state trooper posted for both lanes of traffic. It is crazy. Illinois highways are infested with cops. If you're a cocaine trafficker out there listening to this, do not drive through Illinois. It is a fucking minefield here. It is terrible on the highways. It's so fucked. So the starting problem is getting bad, and I get over to the right and figure I've only got maybe 2 hours or so left to driving, so I could probably tough it out. You know, I'll just stay going around 60 the whole time. I go for maybe another 10 minutes after this, and my whole dash, almost out of nowhere, goes dark, and the car completely lost power. Now, I initially thought that I was having some sort of battery issue or something. I was like, yo, maybe this could be like a battery thing. But I remembered that the girl who had gotten the car just before me told me that she had just gotten the battery put in, along with a bunch of other work. She was pretty good about maintaining the car. Like, I'm pretty sure I still have the manila folder with all of the old maintenance receipts in it. And they were leading up to pretty recent from when I bought the car. So the thing was well maintained. So I never really knew what the actual problem or what was causing the stutter could be. But the car completely lost power at this point. All the lights on my dash went dim. I was slamming on the accelerator and it was doing absolutely nothing. So I get over on the shoulder. Thank God I was already in the far right lane at this point, because if I hadn't thought to do that, this would have gotten ugly. Like, I'm not talking the car would be like kind of slowing down. Like, it completely lost power. It's as if I just took my foot entirely off the gas in the middle of the fucking highway. So I get over to the right, and I'm like, okay, well, let's figure out what's going on here. I turned on my distress lights, and I sit there for a second. I try to turn the key again. I get fucking nothing. At this point, I'm starting to freak out a little bit, because I'm like, all right, I'm 2 hours either direction. I'm 2 hours away from home and 2 hours away from my destination. This is like the shittiest point in my trip to break down at, but hopefully we're going to figure this out. So I spend a couple minutes just kind of sitting there looking shit up on Google. Not a couple minutes. It probably felt like a couple minutes, maybe like a minute. And then I just tried the key again out of nowhere, and it actually worked this time. So I'm like, holy fuck, okay. It started up rough as fuck, but I'm still good to go. So I get back on the road. Now, I probably admittedly should have just turned around and gone home at this point, but I was already halfway there, so what's the point? I wasn't thinking very far ahead. So I continue driving. I make it only about another 30 minutes or so until I break down once again. I luckily stayed in the right lane the whole time, but the car died once again. It started stuttering really bad, making a kind of funny sound, and it fucking died on me. So I get over to the right lane again. Now at this point, I'm sitting there and I'm just trying to figure out what to do. I'm calling up friends and I'm like, yo, could you guys maybe come pick me up or something? I think my car's totally dead. I remember I called Kyle and I was like, Kyle, what the fuck do I do? Because he knows way more about cars than me. And he's like, yeah, dude, I don't know shit about that car. You might be fucked, right? So I'm sitting here and I'm freaking out because one of the biggest concerns I had is I didn't have car insurance yet. Like I said, I had just bought this fucking car. So I did not have it insured yet. I had no proof of insurance. So it wasn't like I could just call fucking Geico and be like, hey, I need a tow. I need some roadside. No, dude. This is going to cost me money no matter what the outcome is. And money was something that I didn't have very much of at all at this point. So I'm kind of starting to freak out a little bit. And I decide to go pop my trunk and grab my bag out and try to maybe roll up a blunt or smoke something or chill out, because the only one that I'd pre-rolled for the drive, I'd already smoked. So I grab my bag out of the trunk and I get back in the car, and I'm sitting there with my distress lights on for a minute, and luckily there wasn't a ton of traffic out, so it wasn't really that bad sitting on the shoulder. They have pretty wide shoulders on the highways and shit, so I'm just kind of chilling at this point. I'm trying to think of my next move. Not at all considering what would happen if a cop potentially drove past. And that's exactly what happened. I'm sitting in the car and I've got my bag, and mind you, my bag has a little bit of weed, which is still illegal in Illinois at this point, and it also has some coke in it, which is illegal fucking everywhere. So eventually, after probably 10 or 15 minutes of sitting in my car, a state trooper pulls up behind me, but he doesn't have his lights on. He just pulls up behind me, which I found to be a little odd. Now, I notice him pull up, and I start shitting myself, because I'm fucking terrified. I typically considered myself pretty good at talking to cops, but when my car's dead and I have no escape and drugs in my bag, and I have no proof of insurance, it's just terrifying. So I get out of my car, right? And I get out on my driver's side, which is dumb of me. And the cop's kind of waving at. He's like, no, stop, wait, don't get out that side. But I get the fuck out. I'm already out of the car. So I kind of walk over behind my car and I'm leaning against my trunk, kind of waiting for this guy to say something. He waits till a little bit of traffic passes and he hops out of his car and he's like, hey, are you good? What's going on? And at this point, I'm fucking shitting myself internally. I'm trying to keep it together, but I'm not gonna lie, I'm fucking terrified. Because I figure this guy's gonna ask for my license and insurance. And I don't fucking have insurance. And if that happens, what if he searches the car? I have blow. I'm fucked. I'm going to jail. So I'm sitting there and I'm pretty fucking nervous. He's like, oh, are you okay? What's going on? I'm like, yeah, my car just kind of died on me. I'm trying to figure it out right now. And he's like, oh, do you have a tow coming or something? Now, I realized pretty quickly I had a split-second decision moment here. I lied, and I was just like, yeah, I got a tow coming for sure. Yeah, I'm just waiting on my tow truck to get here, thinking that maybe that would get me out of this situation. He's like, okay, sounds good. Well, I'll wait here until the tow truck comes. Now, thank the fucking Lord that this guy didn't immediately ask for my license and insurance. I really don't know why he didn't. I credit it to the fact that I told him I had a tow truck coming, because if this guy had to call a tow for me, yeah, I would have been fucked. So I get back in the car and I realize that there is no tow truck coming to save me. I've just told the cop there is one. I don't even have fucking insurance. So I'm starting to panic. I go on my phone, I'm sitting back in the car, and I'm like, oh fuck, dude, what am I supposed to do? So I pull out my phone and I go on Google and I look up tow truck companies. I'm trying to find the nearest one. Now, mind you, I don't even think I had $200 to my name at this point. I had just bought the car. I had just paid my rent right before I bought the car. I had no fucking money. So I'm sitting here and I'm like, dude, this is going to cost me $1 million fucking dollars. And that's just the tow. I don't even know what's wrong with the goddamn car yet. So I'm sitting in my car and I call up a tow truck company and I tell them, I'm like, hey, listen, I'm broken down. And they're like, oh, where are you? And I realized really quickly, I don't know where the fuck I am. I'm not really close to an exit or anything. I'm just kind of in the middle of the highway. And in Illinois, there's really nothing to identify where you are on the highway. I mean, I could describe the fucking corn to my right, but I don't really think that's going to help the driver very much. So I realized that I got to get out and ask the cop. But I already told the cop that I have a tow truck coming, so I can't be on the fucking phone. So I hang up the phone call and I get out of the car. And the cop sees me get out, and I kind of walk up to his passenger side because he doesn't get back out. And he's got his window rolled down. And I'm like, hey, do you know where we are right now? And he's like, oh, like we're right by this exit. And I'm like, okay, thanks, right? So I get back in my car, and I'm still amazed that this cop has not asked for any identification from me. I don't know how I got this fucking lucky. But I get back in my car, and I'm sitting in there, and I call a different tow company because I didn't want to call the one I just hung up on. So I called a different tow company. There was only like 3 in the area because I was in the middle of Illinois. Bumfuck nowhere. The only thing in central Illinois is universities and depression, right? It's terrible. So I call up a different tow company and ask them to come out for me. I tell them the exit I'm near. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm fucking northbound right by this exit. And they're like, okay, we'll be there soon. I describe my car to them. They're like, okay, we'll be there soon. So I'm done with that. Now I finally got a tow truck on the way. But I realize I've got like probably a solid 30 minutes before this tow truck comes. And this cop is just sitting behind me. I'm terrified because at any point, this guy could just decide to ask for my insurance. He has every fucking right to. I mean, I'm sitting here shitting bricks. And I get reminded pretty quickly as I'm shitting bricks and thinking of all the worst possible outcomes that I still have coke in my bag. Now, this isn't a traffic stop, so it's not like this cop is eyeing me the fuck down. But I'm trying to be real covert about this because I'm thinking, I'm like, fuck, dude, like, what do I do with the coke? Maybe this was just a tweaker thing of me to do, but I made the decision to try to hide the coke somewhere other than my bag. I don't really know why I decided to do this, but I was in full panic mode at this point, and I didn't want to get in trouble again. I was a little shaken up with the law stuff after my DUI, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, dude, if I get in trouble today, this is going to fuck my DUI case. Like, I'm boned. So I grab my bag out of the back. I kind of lean back, but I try not to look back, right? I kind of lean back and slide my arm back, and I grab my bag and I pull it to the front. Now, it was sitting on my back seat, luckily, so it was fairly easy to grab, and my car isn't super huge either. So I kind of slide it up to the front and put it on my passenger seat next to me. Now, I reach into the bag, I unzip it, and I pull out my bag of blow. I zip the pocket back up, and now I've just got a bag of blow in the palm of my fucking hands. So now I'm really getting nervous because I'm starting to realize that I don't know this car well enough to know where to hide shit. I've had this thing for like 3 days. I've never been in the position where I had to hide shit, and I'm already having engine problems with this car. So this whole day is falling the fuck apart, right? I figure at this point, I might as well gum a little bit of this coke, because if I get fucked, I'd at least like to be slightly geeked and maybe face numbed as I get fucked. So I open up the bag while it's in my hand and gum just the tiniest pinch of it. I didn't feel like I really had the balls to actually do a full line in front of a fucking cop, but maybe just gumming some will do. So I gummed a fairly generous amount, quite honestly, to the point where I could barely feel my fucking mouth. After rubbing this on my gums, I immediately instinctively just throw the bag under my seat because I didn't know where to put it, and I didn't want to seem like I was looking around my car and scrambling around and shit. So I just threw it under my seat, tried to push it as far under there as I could, and hope for the best. Luckily, since it was an older car, there was a lot of shit under the seat, like a lot of wires and like springs and shit. So I hit it pretty well, in my opinion, because it took me forever to find the shit when it finally came time to do so. So I throw that under the seat, and I sit there for what felt like an eternity just going through my phone. I'm texting all my homies. I'm like, boys, listen, I'm broken down. Is there any way you guys can maybe give me a ride if I get stuck? And pretty much all of my homies are like, yeah, I can't really come that far, you know? So I'm sitting here, and I'm like, damn, I'm real life fucked. I'm actually boned. Like, this is it for me. Even if the cop doesn't fuck me, I'm still stranded in the middle of nowhere. So, finally, after what felt like an eternity, I see my tow truck start to pull up. And I'm fine. I'm happy now. I feel like I've gotten that sweet release, dude. It's like I'm seeing the light, bro. Honestly, it's like I just found out I died and got accepted into heaven. Biggest surprise of my life. I'm like, wow, couldn't believe it. Thought I was hellbound. So, my tow truck pulls up, and the cop just kind of, he pulls off a little bit. He kind of starts his car back up, gets ready to pull off, and he waves at me. Just the friendliest fucking wave on his way out after my tow truck pulls up. And I'm sitting there, and I'm like almost shocked. I'm like flashbanged by what just happened. I'm like, dude, I think that was the only police encounter I've ever had where they didn't try to fist me, where they didn't try to just completely fuck me. I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, nice. Like, the cop actually just looked out for me, I guess. Like, cool, man. All right. You get like a quarter of a point for that because you're still a fucking cop. But I mean, cool, man. Thanks. So my tow truck pulls up and now I'm feeling a lot better. I get out of my car and the tow truck driver gets out and he's like, hey, like, where am I taking you to? And I realized that I didn't know where the fuck I was going to. So I tell him, I'm just like, oh, like, do you know any mechanic shops nearby or anything like that? He's like, yeah, there's one like in the town off the exit up here. I'll just drop you off there. So I hop in his car and pretty much all the money I had on me at this point got eaten up by the tow fee. The tow cost almost $200 fucking dollars, and I shit you not, we went maybe like 5 miles up the road, if even. I think 5 miles might have been generous. Like, we went over like a slight incline in the road and then went off the next fucking exit, and there it was, right? The fucking mechanic shop. But I got charged almost $200 for this tow. So I get dropped off at the mechanic shop with my car, and I go in, and this is not like a Midas or a Jiffy Lube or something. No, this is like Robert's Reliable Repairs or some shit, dude. I don't remember the name of it, but it was not a nice repair shop. Like the kind of place where you could tell they all smoke cigarettes right over your engine, for sure. A little ash in the oil? It's seasoning, dude. Sports performance. Come on, plus 5 horsepower. So I get dropped off at this mechanic shop, but at this point, as nervous as I am because I have no fucking money, I'm just relieved. I'm relieved that at least I didn't get busted for the coke. But now I gotta figure out what to do with the mechanic shop. So the mechanic, he's like, well, what's wrong with the car? Like, what happened? Why'd you have to get towed here? And I'm trying to think quickly. I'm thinking on my feet. Because I'm trying to word it in a way where they only fix that problem and no other issues. Because mechanics love to squeeze in a few extra repairs and tax you more, and I really couldn't afford it. So I tell him, listen, dude, car stalled out on me, started sputtering, won't turn back over. I don't know what's wrong with it. He's like, all right, like, we're going to need to take a look at it. So I'm sitting here and I'm like, well, how long do you think it's going to take? Like, I've got to be up north. I was in the middle of like a road trip. How long do you think it's going to take? And I realize also that my bag is still in the car. So after he tells me that it could take him until the next day, I go and grab my bag out of my car before they start working on it. And I realize pretty quickly the situation that I'm in. I have no car, barely any money, and I have pretty much my entire fate in this cracked out mechanic's hands. This guy looked like he smoked tweak for sure, but he had to be my hero. So I had no choice but to put some faith in him. So I grabbed my bag out of the car, and I completely forgot to grab my Coke out from under the seat, but I didn't really give a shit at this point. Now, across the street, well, not quite across the street, it was a bit of a walk, like a 5 or 10 minute walk, but I could see the sign from this repair shop is this best value, I don't know if it was best value, great value in some sort of shithole hotel. The kind of hotel that people who smoke meth for a living go to. I'm not talking like your average person who needs a night to stay. No, I'm talking like You're kind of person who pays by the week and is going to break almost everything in the room during some meth-induced rampage. This is like their home headquarters, their home turf, the tweaker turf, if you will. But this is the only damn hotel I can see, and I don't have the money to blow for an Uber because I haven't paid for anywhere to stay for the night, and I also haven't paid for the repairs on my car. So I get over to this hotel, and it was like $50 or $60 to get a room for the night. And the guy told me that he might not have it done till tomorrow, which means it's not going to be fucking done until tomorrow. So I book a room at this hotel because better safe than sorry. I book a room and I get my room key and I go over to my room and it smells like fucking death. The musty, dusty, crusty scent that greeted me when I walked in this room was unbelievable. There's also no Wi-Fi at this hotel, but I don't know how. In 2019, there's no Wi-Fi at the damn hotel, but we're not even going to get started on that. So they had employee Wi-Fi. They didn't have fucking guest Wi-Fi. So I get in my room, and I shit you not, it smells like I invited like 15 people over and asked them all to piss on every surface in the room. It was disgusting, but I had no choice. I had just spent almost all of the remainder of my money on this fucking room. I had like maybe $15 left, right? I had a little over $200 at the beginning of the day. The tow in this dog shit piss-covered hotel ate up all of it. So I get in my room, and I throw my bag down, and I immediately call my mom, and I'm like, Mom, I'm in a pickle. I'm not going to make it tonight, I don't think. Can you bum me some money to pay for my car repairs? And she's like, yeah, like, I could send you a little bit. Like, how much do you need? I tell her, I don't really fucking know how much this is going to cost. She tells me that she can only send me like $100, $150. But I'm like, yo, that helps a lot. That's plenty. Thank you so much. Like, I fucking need that. So she lended me a little bit of money. But I realized that was not going to be enough to get my car fixed. There's no way. I was figuring minimum, maybe it was a spark plug issue. And even then, that would still probably cost more than $100 or $150. So I'm scrambling to figure out how to make some extra money. I'm asking all around. I'm hitting up every sponsor. They're like 2 people that I worked with at this point, because my channel was much smaller at this point in time, mind you, asking if they wanted to book another deal for a discount, as long as they paid up front. I was hustling, dude. I was trying to figure it out. Luckily, I had a sponsor reply and take the offer, and they sent me like $400 up front, and I'm like, okay, I think I'm good. You know, like, I think I'm all right. I could breathe a little bit. Now, I left my Coke in the car, and I didn't really think about it until I got to the hotel and really felt like doing some. But it was too late to go back. So I'm sitting there, and all I've got is my little bit of mid and some blunts. So I roll up, and I start smoking in this hotel room, and I turn the TV on. And this hotel, you know, it was kind of surprising because they had absolutely no Wi-Fi, but the TV was actually a flat screen. It was like a 720p flat screen, but it wasn't a box TV, and that really surprised me. I was like, wow, they're putting some love into this place. So I'm sitting in this hotel, and I'm just waiting anxiously. I end up calling the mechanic only like 2 hours later. I probably pissed him off by calling so soon, to ask how my car was doing. He's like, yeah, we're not going to have this one done till tomorrow. And I'm like, oh, like, do you have any idea what's wrong with it? And the guy's like, we haven't even fucking looked at it yet. And I'm like, oh, shit, dude. Like, this guy doesn't give a shit. So I spend the rest of the night in this hotel room just smoking some fucking mid. The remainder of it, I'm trying to ration this shit, dude. It's like I'm in a survival game here, dude. I'm on some Hunger Games. I'm rationing out my weed. It's like it's the apocalypse for me. I have no fucking food, so I end up walking to the gas station about a block or so away from this hotel and grabbing like just a bunch of shitty cheap snacks, like little bags of chips and a couple bottles of water, because I was not going to be caught drinking the tap water out of that faucet, dude. Someone had probably rubbed their fucking cock against that faucet, dude. This was a prostitute hotel. I'm not folding. So I grabbed some waters, I grabbed some snacks, and I go back to the room, and I ended up knocking out pretty early that night. And the next day I woke up, and I remember I woke up, and thank fuck, the mechanic had called me and left a voicemail, and he was like, hey, I got your car ready. Like, it was a fairly easy fix. It's up and running. Like, the car started fine. And he told me it was the spark plugs. Now, I don't know how we got it running, because I don't believe it was actually the spark plugs, because I kept having this issue after this. However, this guy got the car running. What I think might have actually happened is there might have been some loose cable or something, and he just slapped some new spark plugs in and was like, yeah, dude, we'll charge for that. Because I kept having the stutter issue even after this. But I got my car back, and it lasted me long enough to at least the following day get up north and get my shit and get back home. With some stutters, but no other breakdowns, thank God. This was probably one of the closest calls I've ever had with the cops, so I felt like I had to share it. I thought it would make a good video. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. Drop a like if you did, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out, gamers.